All right. So when we left off last time, I brought up something and about when do other authors, feel like they they got an idea? Uh, I mean, we all get ideas, but this is one that's worth putting the effort into. Like, I'm going to really start typing in earnest. Like, I'm gonna, I've maybe done my research, I've plotted everything out, with however you work. I mean, whether you're a pantser or a plotter, but when do you feel like, you know what, I want to at least put the effort in? And I know a lot of authors from reading what they've done before may not make it to the end. They get maybe half, three quarters through, maybe they shelve it, maybe they just say this isn't working, but it's just that initial start. And let me explain why it hit me out of nowhere. I've posted, I rarely blog, as you know, but I have blogged in the past. Occasionally, I've posted stuff about my writing process. I've been asked about my writing process. And I always think of like how I treat character, dialogue, etc. But it hit me when I got a review from someone and they said, "Oh, I love this part. It made me laugh, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Yeah, that was the first scene I wrote for the book." And then it hit me that, yeah, I didn't think of it, but I always write a scene and I title it. It may not end up in the book, or usually it does. But for instance, this particular scene was in my book, Perseus Kills His Grandfather, and the scene was called Stolen Horse. And it was when Hermes steals a horse for Perseus. So I wrote that, and I felt like I had something, but I even wrote another scene after that, which was training with Athena. And I wrote both of those and said, you know what? I think I got something here. I think this book, I want to really, and then I started with page one. I didn't know if those two scenes would be in at that time. They probably would be, but I started with page one, scene one. I already knew the story. And then with the devil and the wolf, it hit me again. I had to think about it. I said, yeah, with the devil and the wolf, I remember writing for a friend a little scene called Lunch is Served. And it's like JR comes down to the poolside and serves his lunch, which ends up being a little cracker with a peanut and a grape on it. And and that made it into the book. So I realized, for me, if I write at least a scene, excerpt, chapter, whatever you want to call it, and I feel like it's working, it's clicking, at least, for books. I talk about short stories because, those are, I don't know, those are a different animal to me, but a full length book, that's what for me works. So what I want to know from all of you, and I guess we could start with Audrey because she's in my upper left. Um, what is there anything? What makes
Okay,
you get
well,
go sign?
if it's really, if the thing, if it needs to be written, it'll tell you, and you just do it. And you make time, and you don't do other things that you would normally do, and you kind of like just do it. But that I find that doesn't happen to me as much anymore. What I need is the beginning, some kind of idea about the end, and like you say, scenes exactly. You have to sit down and write the scenes, and once you have enough, you kind of start getting excited about the thing. It's like it's got a life of its own, and you have to keep it going. And I haven't really had that happen to me for quite a while. I mean, in part, you sort of have to force it, sit down and start writing something. But if scenes develop and there are enough of them, then you have something you can join together, and like I say, it takes on a life of its own. Now I really should make myself do that, and I probably will in the fall. Right now I've got the garden and other things. But yeah, because I had this really good idea, and I wrote up a bunch of notes. Now notes aren't the same. Notes are just
Right.
ideas, and you don't really use proper prose for them, and you have short, abbreviations and stuff. So yeah, I have to sit down and write a few scenes, just like you say, and then at some point it will become a thing, and you have to serve that thing. Well, that's kind of how it works with me.
I just want to interject that you mentioned notes, and notes and research for me. It's not exactly what I'm, because I know there's a bulk of work with that, and I do a lot of it. But yeah, it's beyond that. It's that next step that's like, this is okay. So good.
Yeah.
Berthold, you are next on my circle. Uh,
Uh, um, let's see. So this is a good question because certainly there have been times when, and I'm trying to remember, like with I've told the story before about how I sort of merged two separate story ideas to make the novel, the directorate. And it was really at that moment when I combined those two separate concepts into one story that I realized, okay, this can work. I've got something here. And from that point on, I could just sort of go. The thing is, I've had a lot of false positives, I guess you'd call them, where I'm pretty sure I'm like, this is it. I've got it. I know I've got it. And then it just sort of all just peters out when you get to like midway through or just somewhere through, and it's like, this isn't as good as I thought, or whatever, or I don't know where to take it. So, it's funny. I at least I can say, yes, I know I've got it. But then I remember all the times when I said, yes, I know I've got it, but I didn't actually.
I'm not precluding that point because it happens, like I said, to almost all authors. They get to a point where they thought, well, I thought it was good, but it's not working. But it's just that initial, when you put aside all your upfront work and now you're going to focus. It's like, you're going to begin the writing. You're gonna actually. So yeah. So yeah, I definitely get the. You thought it was good. Now it's not working. That can happen. That can happen. So, Mark, you are next.
Not exactly sure how to answer this question, Richard. As I've said, I am the ultimate pantser. I don't even come close to any kind of outline or anything other than I have an idea. And it typically is, putting somebody in a situation or something, an opening scene that I want to see if I can do something with. So on the one hand, I would say I know it's a thing when I write the first words. When the idea in my head is something I've decided I'm going to start writing. But at the same time, I'm thinking now about the lighthouse story that I've been working on this year, and I use the phrase working on loosely. I'm basically up to about 18,000 words, and those 18,000 words have now got Alexander and Hannah Apple to the lighthouse. And I know that there are some things that are going to happen in the future, but for some reason I'm stuck right now with what to do with them. They're now at the lighthouse, and I need to do something to get them to the next big thing that I know is going to happen. So right now I'm not sure it's still a thing because I haven't figured that out. And I need to figure that out to get to that scene that I've already written the scene where something horrible happens. But right now I'm stuck in terms of, okay, they've just got to the lighthouse. How do I get to this event that happens in a few weeks? Do I just skip ahead to it? Do I fill in some, what is life like at the lighthouse before the bad thing happens, which is probably what I'll do. But I'm stuck. So ultimately, I don't realize I have a thing until I've written the end.
Wow. See, for me, 18,000 words is a commitment that I feel like, okay, put
No,
the
it is.
ideas aside,
Right. But in terms of, the way you've asked this question, when do you know you have a thing? Because
Sure.
of the way I write, it really doesn't happen until I finish it. And I have, I refer to my half dozen half completed novels that I thought were things, but they're just sitting there gathering dust while I figure out if I can make it to the end.
I was just gonna say I have this same problem too, where I'll have something I know this is going to happen, and I'm just like, but how do I get them there, or uh how do I do it in a way that doesn't feel like I'm killing time, even though that's kind of what I am doing, is just killing time until we get to the scene that I want to happen. I'm not good at writing. And for all the times I've made fun of Stephen King, I need to actually take a moment and say he's really good at doing, like, we're not just going to do this, we're going to do this other thing first before we get to the big part. So credit to him.
I think sometimes you have to write the scene that's got you excited, even though it's out of order with the overall story.
Yes,
So,
that's me.
you can always try that.
One with the lighthouse story, that's one of the reasons why I wrote the scene where the bad thing happens, is that might be the opening scene, but I haven't decided yet. There with this particular story, there's probably about 5 different ways I could like start it with like an opening chapter that kind of foretells what's going to happen, or just not foretell and just start at the beginning. But that's one of the reasons why I wrote that scene, was this might be my opening scene.
But the impetus sounds like you had a scene, the lighthouse
Yeah.
scene, the bad thing that
Yeah.
happened. So, and now, of course, that is your goal to get there, but that's what the driver was. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Lucinda.
Right. I actually very much relate to what Audrey said earlier, because I seem to have totally run out of energy when it comes to writing. I've got 2 books on the go, which I've never had before. Both the end of a series, the next book in each series. I know the story. Before I start writing, I know the beginning, I know the end. I've got a pretty good idea what's going to happen in the middle. I tend to write in a linear fashion, unless I'm deliberately going to jump backwards in time, which I don't happen too often. And the only difference is that when I get about, that sort of dip that you get after about 30,000, I think it's the 35,000 dip, when you suddenly think, oh, what's going to happen? I find that very often the characters have taken over, and they've basically filled me in on this, and they're taking sometimes the story in a direction that I hadn't actually envisaged. But it's always very useful to have a subplot running along the side. So, Mark, if you get into a state where you don't know what they're going to do in the lighthouse, then for me, I would introduce another character or 2, to sort of interchange. And then at the end, I do sometimes go back and put in a few red herrings just to be awkward, or things that people say at the end. Oh, I never noticed that. If only I'd seen that, I would have guessed the end, etc. So I'm afraid I'm just very linear, and I don't hop around with scenes, except for the one book I did write, because it was a split personality. I wrote all the nice bits first, then all the crazy bits, and then I just patched them together like a patchwork quilt. So it's driving me insane at the moment, because I really should be writing, and I want to write. And at one time, I used to get withdrawal symptoms. It's worse than coming off cigarettes if I didn't write every day. But I just seem to have ground to a halt recently, and I don't know, it just seems so much effort for such little return. I'm not just talking about monetary return, but you write things because you want people to read them, enjoy them, even if they read them for free, and pass on. It's like seeing a great film and you say, you've got to go and see this film. It's absolutely amazing. Same thing with a book. And if you're not sharing it with lots of people, it can get very, very disheartening. That's
a good point. That's an interesting point for I think even maybe a follow-up topic at some point.
That is one of the, I refer to the 73 reasons why I'm suffering from writer's block, has long been, one of them has long been, if I only have 10 or 20 or 50 readers, is this really worth it?
I just think it's very annoying, because I could not walk down to my local coffee shop and say, give me a free cup of coffee. If I like it, I might buy a second cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And you think that you've spent maybe 6 months writing a book, and then you've paid for a cover, and you've paid for formatting, and you upload it. It could be a year's work, it could be less. And then, your tap breaks, and the plumber swans in and charges you 120 euros for 10 minutes work, and you think, I'm in the wrong trade. Absolutely.
Yeah, also, I've had the thought recently that maybe there's just too many books, and those of us who write them should, just kind of stop. but maybe that's kind of a downer. And then, of course, we could right here introduce AI, which is writing books that takes them a second or two to create a book. And why are we even bothering?
What I've done with but
Wait,
nobody reads
and
my
that's
books.
not the downer?
It is. It's
That was your
huge.
alternative? Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, it's okay. What I've tried to do when I start to wallow in, but I don't have a lot of readers. I remember Bertold Gambrel's famous words, but you have some readers, and that's all that should matter. So
Yeah. That describes to a T, I have some readers. I count them easily.
yeah.
That's fine, actually.
But you've got to start somewhere, right?
By the way, Bertold, your tweet about you have the solution to, I forget exactly what it said, but you have the solution to solve the world's problems, but you won't share it until everybody buys your friend's books. It worked. I sold a book yesterday.
Excellent. Excellent.
I do have this horrible feeling that as the world moves on, and we get left behind in the beginning of this century, that AI can easily take over music, art, maybe
yeah.
not sculpture, but literature, movies. It's quite disheartening. I find it disheartening anyway.
Well,
Although
I hate
very...
hold on, Richard. I hate to break it to you, Lucinda, but with 3D printers, it will also take over sculpture.
Yeah, I mentioned that. I don't want to shift too quickly to because let Bertold take over for the AI chat, but I didn't put this in my little blog, but this was a joke I heard on the Daily Show when they were talking about a new AI program that can create music for you. Like you say, oh, I want a song that sounds like the Beatles. Or the joke was, why do you need that? Have you finished Spotify? Like, what is? And that's how I also feel with reading. I mean, you mentioned it before, so many books out there. Why do you need AI to write you a book? I don't. I know people are. I know that's what's happening. I know people use it to write books, but why do you need that when there's so much? There's so much music out there. There's so many books out there, and yet you want AI to create more for you when you don't even know the entire scope of what's there. I don't.
The thing is, though, that people who possibly do not have the ability, maybe, or even the imagination to put a book or even a song together, can get some, whatever to do it for you, and then you put your name on it.
Well, that's what I said. People writing books using AI, but the people who want to read books,
Well, will they know the difference, Richard?
They won't. But the thing was like this app for the music was you tell the app what music you want to hear, not writing your music for you. It's like whatever the app name was called. Give me a Beatles-like song that sings about Aardvarks, and it would create songs and music and everything for you to hear, not for you to put out. So it was for you to hear. And the same thing with readers. I can't see a reader saying, I'd like to read I want to read a book about blah, 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 without even at least finding out maybe there is a book out there about it. Maybe there's a book about space elevators and things. And, that's interesting.
Wow, that's crazy.
And thought-provoking. No, there are. I've heard they're out there, but that's what I mean. Why?
And actually written by a human being with real human emotions and feelings.
I don't get the consumer angle. I get the producer angle. Like I said in my blog, I can't draw. All right. I understand that. And in fact, I wasn't kidding. A recognizable stick figure on a good day is my capability. So I get that having something draw for you is wonderful. But then, I go off, on the blog about why there's negatives about how that was created. But I understand the creator point of view, but it's the consumer of that creation. I don't get that.
I don't think consumers of books or music are looking to for AI produced things.
Well,
I
this
think it's
one product did. Yeah, this
yeah,
one
I think it's the
product.
publishers. They probably are experimenting with AI already to produce more from popular genres without having to deal with live human authors who can be a problem for them.
Well, or even, I mean, a simple one is like, and they did this, with ghostwriters now. Like Tom Clancy died like 10 years ago, but they still have books written about Tom Clancy type subjects by other authors, and it'll say like a Tom Clancy whatever brand.
James Patterson.
Yeah, exactly. So now they'll start using AI to just do that. They won't even need another author.
I guess that's it. I guess actually, Bertold, you may have hit on one of the things. There seems to be a need in the public for more of the same. I want new, but I want it to be more of the same. It's that contradictory, So if please, I'm not getting into a specific genre field, but if a new Star Wars movie is coming back, everyone's all hyped about it, and then they see it and they go, but it isn't the same. And I was like, but you wanted new, but you want that. So, but AI maybe can be better at delivering that to them. I don't know.
There are already these things. You'll see a video like imagine Star Wars, but remixed as a samurai film or something. I mean, Star Wars is almost a samurai film anyway, but
yeah,
they use AI to reimagine it. And yeah, that's again, yeah, you're exactly right, Richard, that people want more of the same, except they want it to be different. It's really crazy.
Well, isn't that what's behind all the sequels and remakes and things? Like that's the same thing, only a little different, tweaked up. And it's the same with a lot of fiction genres too, really. Mm-hmm. And really, when you go to publishers, I think they're also kind of looking for like the latest hot thing, but not too different because that won't sell. So
they need something to put in a box.
Yeah, well, whatever it is, it boils down to money. Men in Black, number 35, Star Wars, number 147, because 146 actually brought in the box office. So we won't take too much of a chance. And horrible thing that Audrey said, which is possibly true, that they might not have to deal with authors who are difficult and complaining. It's going to be a lot cheaper to sort of take something that has been made by a machine who won't demand that I want this cover or that cover, or why haven't you paid my royalties, etc., etc. The bottom line really is money, I think.
Yeah. By the way, side note to anyone in Hollywood, I'm a pushover and I'm cheap, so
And this is actually the thing I like about having a small group of readers where you're just sort of writing and that you're writing for like these 20 people, because at that point you're not motivated by money. You're just motivated by, is this something my 20 readers are going to find interesting? Yeah. No, I know it's probably small consolation if you're like, but I could have $1 million instead. But it's, if you do it for the fun of it. I think Chuck Litka has written about this on either on his blog or maybe on the supporting writers blog, that writing could become more of a artisanal thing where you go to a human writer for specialized handcrafted, as it were, stories, even though the bulk of writing might be generated by AI.
Should I stop putting that on my book blurbs, handcrafted?
Handmade in Auntie Bessie's kitchen, sort of thing.
Yeah. I saw in a recent book that I'm going to be reviewing. I've got a review copy. The author has actually said, and I don't know how much good this would do, but she has actually said this book it's forbidden to use this book to train AI. Now, to be honest, I don't know how you can prevent that, because I think as soon as your stuff is in electronic form and on the internet, it can be sucked up by I don't even know how that works, to be honest. How do the AI companies actually go about scraping? Like what
Well,
mechanism do they
I
use?
can only point to one story from, I think it was very early this year. It might have been where one of the companies got sued because or it was from the Australian Writers Group that I learned about this. That a company scraped data of books from a pirate site.
Huh?
So the pirate sites are getting the digital
Yeah.
information, and then they post it for people to book, right? Get books for free, especially both the bulk of the indie authors, which is the triple insult of you demanding free books from indie authors. But and the arguments that I had with people online then was that, well, even though it was a pirate, the pirate site was the one that did the wrongdoing. Once the pirate sites made these public, it's public domain. And I was like, well, that's stolen goods, but as I mentioned, but that was what happened. The company, it may have been ChatGPT, I don't know. It was one of those that took information, targeted the pirate sites as a source to train and learn from. And so people's works were ending up sometimes verbatim in some of the output. And that's the start of that whole thing. It may have been end of last year. I have to go look that up. But yeah, so that's one way.
Pirate sites have been a problem for a long time, because they were putting out other people's work. And
Mhm.
there was an app that you could download. A few of my friends did it. But the thing is that, yes, the app found your book on all these pirate sites and they took them down. And although some of them were scams and they just took people's credit cards details and they didn't get anything, no books arrived at any point, but some of them weren't. And the moment they were taken down, another 15 or 20 appeared the next day, and it was just impossible to keep up.
Yeah.
So in the end, the idea was, well, perhaps if they got one of your books and they liked it, they might read some of the others. But I mean, that's a bit of a rather. What can you do? You
I
actually can't
remember
stop it.
when I published my first novel, and I would like Google the name of the novel and my name just to see what was out there on it. If I went far enough down the results on Google, I would find it on pirate sites.
Mhm.
So, does anybody here, I don't know if we're officially moving on to AI now, it sounds like it. Does anybody here have any plans to use AI for anything? For instance, designing a cover, writing a blurb, coming up with an idea, anything at all in your process, would you consider using AI?
Not for writing. No, I mean, like I call myself a writer. That means I use my own brain to write stuff. And I think that even extends to blurbs and stuff like that. But I'm a terrible marketer. In fact, I think I call myself a non-marketer. So I don't think I'd even use it for that. But not for writing. Now, I have used those AI voices for these two audiobooks I have up
Yes.
free. And I don't have any plans to do any more because of this whole ethical thing. I mean, our chats have probably been scraped to add to the human speech database. We're contributing.
You don't
So I
want
don't
my
really
speech. Trust me.
Somewhere one of our voices has narrated somebody else's book.
exactly. That's why I semi-jokingly said, "Well, we've all contributed to this willy-nilly, so we might as well use some of it." But I think that's kind of a shallow rationalization. But no, I don't have any plans to use it for writing, and I really don't think I'd be using it for cover images either, just because. So no, I don't have
Yeah,
plans.
I don't plan on using AI for anything either. I feel like the day I need to use AI for something is the day I can just, put my computer away and move on to something else.
Mhm.
Here's how I would if it existed, which it probably never will. But you know how we have stock photography, et cetera, and and they pay photographers, and some of them are just actually what is it, like they freelance. They just create a lot of photographs and then sell them to these companies and make a decent living. As with all these things, they're not millionaires by any stretch of imagination, but that's how they make their living. So stock photography is out there to be used and purchased and licensed, et cetera. And of course, the companies make most of the money off that. Yeah, what are you going to do? That's what we live in. But for AI, the only way I would say for a cover creation would be is if the company providing that AI said, we paid artists to give us content that we trained on, and here are the artists. So they get credit. And you could actually say, I want my cover to be this, that, the other in the style of that artist. So you really have to, or maybe these two are. So you have to give them, sort of their recognition away by your purchase. So the company can say, hey, these artists are doing well for us. So it's now nothing more different than selling your artwork, selling your stock photography to these companies in order for them to use and license. And I think I would feel comfortable with that. I would say, all right, now I'm going to design my book cover. And I like, just like when I did the audio for my books, I had people submit, audio samples, and it was like an audition. And that's kind of like what I would love this to be. So I can choose an artist, I could choose their work, and the work can be through AI molded to just what I want on the cover. And that's my idea. And that would get my money, that would get my time. But anything else? No, 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 no.
So we only have about 3 minutes left, just so.
Oh, wow.
So I was going to say, so Richard is a maybe on the use of AI.
I think I'm unlikely to use it, but I do have this horrible, slightly guilt feeling that I might be a Luddite by not moving with the times and being stuck in the dark ages, because I won't take what, modern technology is offering me. So there is this slight guilt feeling that I've got that I really should, but I don't want to, and I don't, I'm just reluctant about the whole thing.
Okay. Well, we only do have a couple minutes. I'll put this out there. I did blog about my feelings on AI. So if we pick this up next time, I'll try not to rehash any of that because I always have more.
Actually, Richard, can you put me on your blog list, please?
Oh, yeah. I have to. I don't blog often enough, so I'll go in and see how I do that. I'm on WordPress, so
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so much.
I started following you a while ago. You don't blog that often, but yes.
No, twice a year at max. The title of my blog page is possibly the world's worst blogger. So.
And Audrey must be one of the best because I get yours frequently, Audrey.
Oh yeah, I crank something out.
Good.
See, I'm aiming for 1,000 posts by the time I've been at it for 15 years, which will be like next May. And I need only about 35 posts to get there, so I'm keeping up.
I now I need to go see how many posts I've written on my blog. There was one year where I decided to try to blog every day for an entire year, and I made it about 8 months.
Wow.
Oh.
And many of those days had multiple posts. So.
Wow.
Doesn't give a lot of time for writing books, though, does it?
Oh, that's when I was still pretty productive.
Oh, okay.
I personally believe one of my biggest problems is I have too much time now. Seriously, I've been the most productive when I've had way too much going on in my life. So,
wow.
but this is not a therapy session for me.
Well, that would be next week's topic.
There you go.
Exactly.
Let's help Mark.
Okay.